Welcome, beautiful Sigma ladies. Some men don't chase Sigma females. They study them like a mystery they can't solve until they realize they were never meant to. Sigma females aren't just hard to read, they're unreadable by design. They move through life with an energy that confuses ordinary men and threatens manipulative ones. Their silence feels like power, their independence like rebellion. And that's exactly why some men don't try to win them. They try to trap them. According to recent behavioral studies, people who feel powerless around confident women are more likely to engage in subtle psychological games, micro-manipulations, masked as affection, curiosity, or even spiritual connection. In other words, when a Sigma female enters the room, she doesn't attract attention, she awakens strategy. The irony? Most of these men genuinely believe they're in control, while the Sigma female is 3 moves ahead, quietly watching their mind games collapse under their own insecurity. So yes, men set traps, elaborate, clever, sometimes even poetic ones. But when it comes to Sigma females, it's a bit like trying to catch lightning in a butterfly net. And somehow they always think, this time, it'll work. Welcome to 12 Traps Men Use on Sigma Females, where we unravel not just the games men play, but the psychology behind why they can't stop playing them. Number 1. The delayed affection trap. This trap is subtle, manipulative, and almost invisible until it's too late. It starts with a man who knows how to hold back, not completely, just enough to keep the Sigma female guessing. He gives her just a taste of warmth, just enough presence to make her curious, but never enough to make her feel secure. Every act of affection is earned, never given. Every compliment feels like a prize for behaving right. It's not love, it's training disguised as tenderness. The Sigma female, who usually doesn't crave validation, starts to notice the pattern. His affection comes when she's soft, agreeable, or open, and disappears the moment she asserts her boundaries or reclaims her solitude. Slowly, without realizing it, she begins to adjust her behavior to keep that affection flowing. Not because she's weak, but because she values emotional consistency, and he's turned it into a moving target. This is where the manipulation bites. He teaches her that love is conditional, that warmth is a reward, and that calmness must be negotiated. It's not about romance, it's about control through emotional timing. He creates a rhythm where she starts working for what should naturally be shared, genuine connection. Men who use this trap usually can't handle a woman who doesn't need them, so they try to make her need the feeling of being chosen. It's a quiet way to dominate, not through words or power, but through scarcity. They make affection feel like luxury, so she forgets that it's supposed to be the baseline. But here's where it backfires. The Sigma female, once she recognizes the game, doesn't explode or chase. She detaches, coldly, silently, permanently. She doesn't argue or explain, she simply disappears from the script he wrote. Because once she sees that his love was never delayed, just rationed, she stops waiting for it. And the moment she does, the trap collapses. Number 2. The echo chamber. Trap. This trap feels harmless at first because it's wrapped in warmth, validation, and agreement. The man creates an environment where the Sigma female feels constantly affirmed, as long as she behaves in ways that fit his version of her. He praises her strength, her intellect, her calmness, but only when those traits don't challenge him. The moment she becomes too direct, too bold, or too unpredictable, the approval fades. It's not rejection, just a quiet shift, fewer compliments, colder energy, less engagement. The silence is his punishment, and the approval returns only when she adjusts. What makes this dangerous is how quietly it conditions her. The Sigma female is used to walking alone, but even she appreciates genuine recognition when it's earned. So when the man gives it, she doesn't see the manipulation. She interprets it as mutual respect. Slowly, without realizing it, she starts editing herself to keep that peace. She tones down her fire to avoid the chill. She hides her raw thoughts so he doesn't pull away. It's not because she fears him, it's because she values harmony. But in doing so, she begins to live inside his echo chamber, a version of herself that's safe for his comfort, but foreign to her truth. The man's goal isn't always conscious. Sometimes it's insecurity disguised as love. He doesn't want to destroy her independence, he just wants it quieter, smaller, easier to handle. So he shapes her through attention, not force. The praise becomes the leash. Eventually, the Sigma female feels the dullness creeping in. Her energy feels muted, her instincts less alive. That's when the realization hits. She's being loved for her compliance, not her essence. And when she reaches that point, she walks away without ceremony, because for her, silence is better than a love that only echoes approval when she's predictable. She doesn't crave applause, she craves authenticity, and she'd rather lose a man than lose herself. Number 3. The phantom bond trap. This trap is one of the most deceptive because it doesn't rely on constant presence, it thrives on absence. The man creates a connection that feels intense but is mostly built on distance, silence, and unspoken emotions. He gives the Sigma female glimpses of depth, then disappears just long enough for her to fill in the blanks. The bond feels powerful, even spiritual, but in truth, most of it exists in her mind, a product of her emotional intelligence connecting dots that were never fully drawn. This man doesn't chase or overwhelm. He lingers. He gives short, meaningful conversations, fragments of vulnerability, and then vanishes with perfect timing. The Sigma female, who doesn't attach easily, mistakes this pattern for balance. She assumes he's giving her space because he understands her need for solitude. But what he's really doing is feeding her imagination, letting her build the rest of the connection herself. The less he gives, the more meaningful it feels. The silence becomes charged, the distance becomes romanticized. What makes this trap dangerous is how quietly it infiltrates her mind. The Sigma female values independence, so she doesn't feel obsessed, she feels intrigued. Yet over time, his absence begins to occupy mental space she never offered freely. She starts analyzing his pauses, interpreting his minimal effort as mystery instead of manipulation. He knows she's used to shallow men, so he weaponizes scarcity, turning lack of effort into the illusion of depth. But this illusion only works for so long. The Sigma female eventually catches on that real bonds don't require guessing. She realizes that this connection was never mutual. It was her emotional intelligence doing all the work. When that truth hits, the magic dies instantly. The charm turns into clarity, and she walks away with a quiet strength, knowing he never actually held her. He only made her believe there was something to hold. The phantom fades, but the lesson remains. Sometimes the most intoxicating bonds are the ones that never truly existed. Number 4. The redemption narrative trap. This trap is emotional manipulation wrapped in tragedy and charm. It begins with a man who presents himself as broken, not in a dramatic, chaotic way, but with quiet pain that looks genuine. He shares stories of betrayal, heartbreak, or loss, carefully curated to awaken the Sigma female's empathy. He doesn't ask for her help outright. He simply positions himself as a man who's been misunderstood, someone who just needs the right woman to help him find peace again. To a Sigma female, who naturally sees potential and strength beneath scars, this looks like a challenge worth investing in. He builds a narrative where she becomes the healer and he the wounded soul. Every time she helps him grow or feel better, he reinforces the illusion that she's saving him. It's a clever form of emotional dependency, disguised as intimacy. The more she invests in his healing, the more she ties her worth to his progress. Without realizing it, she becomes emotionally responsible for his moods, his mistakes, even his happiness. But the truth is, he's not looking for healing. He's looking for control. The pain he flaunts isn't a wound, it's a hook. By making her feel needed, he keeps her emotionally bound. Her strength becomes his support system, and his weakness becomes her purpose. And once that dynamic is set, he begins to pull back his gratitude, turning her efforts into expectations. What started as compassion becomes obligation. For the Sigma female, this realization cuts deep. She sees that his pain wasn't an invitation to love, but a tool to control the flow of her energy. She understands that she was never meant to save him. She was meant to stay trapped in his redemption story, and when she finally walks away, she doesn't do it in anger. She leaves quietly, reclaiming her light, knowing that some men don't want to heal. They just want to be worshipped for surviving their own chaos. And that's not love. That's manipulation dressed as vulnerability. Number 5. The ego integration trap. This trap is the most sophisticated one of all because it doesn't attack the Sigma female. It absorbs her. The man doesn't challenge her confidence or question her independence. Instead, he merges with it. He starts speaking her language, adopting her mindset, even quoting her ideas back to her. At first, it feels refreshing to her. Finally, someone who gets it, who resonates on her level, who doesn't feel intimidated by her strength. But that's exactly how the trap begins. He becomes her mirror, not her partner. Every belief she expresses, he echoes. Every opinion she stands on, he reinforces. It feels like alignment, but it's imitation. He studies her values, mannerisms, and emotional tone until he can almost predict her reactions. In doing so, he slowly blurs the boundary between where she ends and he begins. The Sigma female, who is used to being misunderstood, interprets this mimicry as connection, the kind she rarely experiences. She lets her guard down, convinced she's found a true equal. But once he's fully integrated into her world, he starts to rewrite it. He slips in subtle differences, small changes in language, beliefs, or priorities. They seem harmless at first, but each one shifts the foundation slightly. The woman who once stood firm in her solitude now starts second-guessing her instincts, not realizing that her identity is being edited from the inside. He doesn't dominate her. He becomes her, and then steers her in the direction that serves him. This kind of manipulation doesn't leave bruises. It leaves confusion. The Sigma female starts to feel disconnected from herself without knowing why. Her clarity turns into fog. Her authenticity begins to sound like his voice, echoing through her mind. But the moment she sees it, the instant she realizes she's been psychologically rewritten, everything collapses. She withdraws completely, because for her, imitation is the highest form of betrayal. The man thought he could control her by merging with her essence. What he forgot is that Sigma females don't lose themselves. They reset, and when they do, they erase anyone who tried to live inside their identity. Number 6. The spiritual bait trap. This trap works because it exploits the Sigma female's natural gravitation toward depth and authenticity. Some men recognize that she doesn't settle for surface-level conversations or casual charm, so they craft an image of spiritual insight, speaking about energies, consciousness, growth, or purpose in ways that seem profound. On the surface, it feels like a meeting of minds, a rare alignment that respects her intellect and emotional intelligence. But in reality, It's a performance designed to lure her into lowering her defenses. These men don't genuinely live the principles they talk about. Their spirituality isn't about awareness or integrity, it's about access. By presenting themselves as soulful, enlightened, or evolved, they make the Sigma female believe they operate on her level. She perceives depth where there may be none, and instinctively begins to trust, engage, and invest emotionally. Each concept they drop, the talk about chakras, energy flow, cosmic alignment, or mindfulness, isn't a reflection of true insight, but a tool to weave familiarity and intimacy. The danger lies in subtlety. He doesn't need to contradict her or challenge her directly. He simply mirrors her curiosity, repeats the language she respects, and nods at her values. Slowly, she feels understood, but the understanding is one-sided. Every conversation, every shared awakening moment is a strategic step to draw her in closer, to make her feel connected, while he remains untethered from genuine authenticity. Eventually, if she doesn't notice, she could begin to invest energy into a man who's less a partner and more a puppet master of perception. He gains insight into her values, triggers, and desires, all while remaining elusive and protected behind the mask of spirituality. When the Sigma female finally recognizes the illusion, the attraction evaporates instantly, leaving clarity in its wake. The trap works because it masquerades as something noble, elevated, and rare. But in truth, it's just a lure hiding the lack of substance beneath the surface. Number 7. The intellectual duel trap. This trap is subtle but powerful because it targets what the Sigma female values most: her mind. Some men feel threatened by her intelligence, by the way she analyzes situations, sees patterns, and cuts through pretenses. Instead of respecting her mental dominance, they attempt to weaken it through constant engagement. They lure her into debates that never have a resolution, conversations that loop endlessly, and arguments that are more about control than understanding. At first, it feels stimulating. She's used to intelligent exchanges, and he seems capable of keeping up. But over time, these interactions become exhausting. The man isn't genuinely interested in exploring ideas or challenging her for growth. He's trying to stretch her mental energy thin, to create friction where there shouldn't be any. Each debate, each rebuttal, each insistence on being right chips away at her patience and focus. What started as a display of intellect slowly transforms into a mental tug-of-war designed to tire her sharpness. The danger is that it's hard to spot. He frames it as curiosity, passion, or even respect for her mind. He praises her insights while simultaneously setting up situations where she has to defend, explain, or justify herself endlessly. The Sigma female, who usually thrives on clarity and control, finds herself drained, questioning not her ideas but the effort it takes to maintain dominance in his presence. He's not seeking equality. He's creating subtle psychological fatigue. Eventually, she begins to associate her own intelligence with exhaustion. The joy of thinking freely, of analyzing and strategizing, starts to feel like labor, and that's the goal of the trap, to make her think twice before fully unleashing her mind around him. He's not competing, he's sabotaging. But the moment she recognizes it, the fatigue turns into clarity. She disengages completely, understanding that mental sparring disguised as connection is not a partnership, it's manipulation. And for a Sigma female, wasting mental energy on control games is unacceptable. Number 8. The subtle diminishment trap. This trap is surgical, almost invisible, and it works because it never hits where she expects. The man doesn't attack her directly or challenge her strength outright. That would be too obvious and provoke resistance. Instead, he uses praise as camouflage. He compliments her brilliance, her independence, her achievements, but never fully or freely. Each compliment comes with a twist, a but, a subtle correction or a faintly veiled suggestion that she might be overstepping or missing something. It's admiration with a built-in qualifier, designed to make her question herself without her ever noticing the manipulation. The genius of this trap is in the slow erosion. A Sigma female is self-aware and confident, so blunt attacks rarely work. But these micro-cuts, delivered over time, chip away at her perception of her own power. She begins to notice little hesitations in herself, small moments of doubt, and questions about whether she's too intense, too unyielding, or too independent. He isn't trying to dominate openly. He's trying to shrink her subtly, making her conform to the space he's comfortable with while appearing supportive. The danger lies in its invisibility. He frames everything as concern, advice, or even playful teasing. She may feel like she's overthinking or being too sensitive, but the cumulative effect is real. Her self-perception, which once radiated absolute clarity and confidence, starts to wobble ever so slightly. Each backhanded compliment, each correction disguised as help, is a tiny stitch in a net designed to restrain her natural strength. Ultimately, this trap fails only when the Sigma female recognizes it for what it is. Once she sees that the admiration was never unconditional, that the praise carried hidden limits, she stops seeking validation from him entirely. She doesn't lash out. She simply removes herself from the space where her power was being measured and minimized. The subtle diminishment doesn't crush her. It only sharpens her awareness. And a Sigma female who has learned the game never plays it again. Number 9. The protection performance trap. This trap is insidious because it begins with a feeling every Sigma female rarely resists: safety. The man positions himself as her protector, constantly attentive, always ready to shield her from discomfort or conflict. On the surface, it looks like care, respect, and attentiveness. He appears dependable, strong, and reassuring, exactly what anyone would want from a partner. But the protection he offers isn't neutral. It comes with invisible strings. Gradually, she starts noticing the pattern. Every decision, every step outside comfort zones, is subtly influenced by his presence. He doesn't forbid, but his concern carries weight. She finds herself explaining choices, justifying actions, or even altering plans to avoid triggering his worry or disapproval. Over time, his attentiveness becomes a framework around which her autonomy must operate. She starts unconsciously seeking his nod, measuring freedom through the lens of his approval. What makes this trap particularly dangerous is its disguise as love. Sigma females value independence, and someone who appears to honor that while quietly shaping it feels almost paradoxical. The man doesn't need to control overtly. He builds a structure in which she willingly accommodates him. The walls are invisible, but they are there, subtle limitations that shrink her world without her noticing. Her sense of self-direction begins to feel incomplete unless it passes through his filter. Eventually, if left unchecked, this pattern transforms her autonomy from an unshakable constant into something conditional, contingent on his attention, concern, or presence. The more she trusts him, the tighter the dependency becomes, and the less she realizes how much of her natural freedom has been guided by him rather than herself. The moment she recognizes it, clarity arrives like a cold wind. She sees that what felt like care was a strategy, not a gift. Real protection doesn't restrict, it empowers. And for a Sigma female, autonomy isn't negotiable. She will step back, reclaim her independence, and refuse to let someone redefine her freedom under the guise of safety. Number 10. The intimacy paradox. Trap. This trap is confusing because it blends warmth and distance in a way that feels magnetic yet destabilizing. The man becomes physically present. He touches, leans in, holds, and shares moments that create the illusion of intimacy. The connection feels real on the surface, almost electric, and it tricks even a Sigma female into sensing trust and closeness. But beneath that physicality, he remains emotionally absent. He doesn't share fears, vulnerabilities, or truths that reveal his inner world. The touch is real, but the understanding is missing, leaving a silent void she can't quite define. The paradox works because the Sigma female is wired to recognize authenticity. She doesn't fall for fake gestures easily, yet when physical closeness is paired with emotional distance, it creates a tension she can't ignore. Her instincts demand clarity. She wants to understand who he truly is, but he intentionally withholds it. She feels the pull of connection, but the emotional gaps make her question what's real. It's a subtle form of control. He feeds desire and attachment while starving comprehension. Over time, this dynamic becomes disorienting. She may start analyzing her own feelings, wondering if she's misreading signals or overreacting. The physical closeness encourages emotional investment, yet the lack of transparency keeps her slightly off balance. She can't fully engage because she's never sure what's genuine and what's performance. He never needs to push or manipulate outright. The imbalance does the work for him. Eventually, the Sigma female notices the inconsistency. She realizes that the intimacy she felt was partial, engineered to keep her tethered without ever fully connecting. The physical closeness was a lure, the emotional distance a trap. And once that clarity hits, she disengages decisively. For her, real intimacy requires alignment between body and mind, presence and truth. Anything less isn't connection. It's a paradox designed to keep her invested in a mirage. Number 11. The observer's trap. This trap is quiet, calculated, and almost invisible until the Sigma female realizes what's happening. The man doesn't rush in with grand gestures or immediate intimacy. Instead, he watches. He studies her routines, her body language, the way she thinks and reacts, sometimes for months, without revealing his intentions. He notices her patterns, her likes and dislikes, the subtle ways she expresses herself when she believes no one is paying attention. Every silence she keeps, every decision she makes, becomes data for him to analyze. Once he's absorbed enough, he re-enters her life, not as the outsider, but as the mirror she didn't know she needed. He speaks in her rhythm, anticipates her words, mirrors her thoughts, and aligns with her energy so perfectly that it feels like fate. The Sigma female senses connection, resonance, and alignment. It feels rare, almost magical, because he seems to understand her on a level most people don't. But the reality is starkly different. This isn't genuine compatibility or mutual understanding. It's a performance meticulously built from observation. He hasn't grown with her, evolved alongside her, or shared authentic experiences. Instead, he has learned her blueprint and uses it to simulate intimacy. The connection feels real, but it's essentially a projection of her own patterns reflected back to her. The danger of this trap is its subtlety. A Sigma female values precision, insight, and alignment, so the man who appears to get her so well naturally draws her in. She may initially admire his thoughtfulness and synchronicity, unaware that it's not born from shared depth, but from meticulous study. When she eventually notices the pattern, the repetition, the predictability, the absence of genuine evolution, the illusion crumbles. At that moment, the Sigma female disengages completely. She doesn't argue or debate. She simply recognizes that what felt like connection was a carefully engineered simulation. Observing without presence may create an illusion of understanding, but it can never replace the authenticity that she demands. And for her, once a trap like this is revealed, it's irredeemable. Number 12. The wounded alpha trap. This trap is built on a clever illusion, strength intertwined with vulnerability. The man presents himself as a strong, capable individual, but one who has been hurt before. He shares carefully curated stories of past pain, betrayals, losses, disappointments, enough to stir the Sigma female's natural empathy. She is drawn to strength tempered by experience, to resilience shaped by hardship. His wounds feel real, sincere and worthy of care, and they serve as the perfect entry point to capture her attention and investment. The danger is that the vulnerability is selective and strategic. He doesn't reveal the depths of his character or intentions. Instead, he reveals just enough to appear genuine and deserving of her trust. The softness is a mask, a camouflage that conceals the manipulator's goal, influence and control. By eliciting empathy, he positions her as a caretaker for his emotional world, subtly tying her energy, attention, and emotional labor to his needs. What starts as compassion slowly becomes responsibility. Her natural instinct to support and understand is weaponized against her. The brilliance of this trap is its invisibility. The Sigma female, who values depth and authenticity, initially sees alignment in their shared understanding of struggle. She believes she recognizes strength through the lens of survival, unaware that what she's engaging with is a narrative constructed to elicit investment. Every moment of empathy she gives reinforces his control, making her feel connected, needed, and essential, all while he maintains the upper hand. Eventually, if she recognizes the pattern, clarity hits sharply. She sees that the so-called wounded alpha wasn't seeking healing or partnership. He was using her awareness and compassion as a lever. The pity that once seemed tender now reveals itself as a trap, designed to tether her independence. And once that truth surfaces, the Sigma female disengages decisively, reclaiming the energy she once offered freely, knowing that authentic connection never comes through manufactured wounds. The reality of these traps is harsh but undeniable. Sigma females are not immune to manipulation, not because they are weak, but because the strategies used against them are designed to feel invisible, seductive, and even enlightening. Men who attempt these traps don't always attack with obvious force. They operate in the shadows of perception, using subtlety, timing, and psychology to create patterns that feel like connection, understanding, or destiny. From the phantom bond that plays with absence to the observer who simulates intimacy, to the carefully rationed affection that conditions behavior, these traps are lessons in the art of subtle control. What makes them particularly dangerous is how they exploit the Sigma female's greatest strengths: her independence, intelligence, and empathy. Her clarity becomes a tool for the manipulator. Her intuition becomes a labyrinth he tries to navigate. Each trap tests her boundaries, her self-trust, and her understanding of what genuine connection looks like. Yet the brilliance of a Sigma female is that she is always learning, always recalibrating, and always observing. The moment she sees the pattern, the illusion crumbles, and her power, which was never diminished, only tested, is fully restored. These strategies are not about romance or compatibility. They are about influence and control, disguised as alignment. They serve as a stark reminder that even the most independent, self-aware, and powerful women can be nudged off course when subtlety and psychological precision are employed against them. Recognizing these traps, understanding them, and seeing them clearly is not just empowering. It is essential for preserving autonomy, clarity, and emotional sovereignty. If you've found these insights valuable and want to continue exploring the hidden dynamics that govern human behavior, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more content that dives deep into the minds of Sigma females and the men who try to influence them. Like this video, comment your thoughts below, and share it with others who value clarity and self-mastery. Knowledge is power, and awareness is freedom. Don't miss the next lesson.